We are back, and I have to say I was able to catch Prey last night. I watched the dub in Comanche because I felt that this was an interesting way to watch it. We've always seen Native Americans being portrayed in movies like Dances with Wolves and The Last of the Mohicans and all this kind of stuff. And we've heard all these different dialects, but I believe I read that this was one of the first times that Comanche was used. So I was like, well, I want to hear what that sounds like because I've never really heard that dialect language. So I was like, okay, let's do it. So I watched it in that. I enjoyed the movie. I think this is probably one of the better Predator films since the original. In retrospect, I not too long ago, I watched Predator 2, and I don't know if it holds up, even though I'm a big fan of Bill Paxton, big fan of Danny Glover. Loved the Gary Busey. It was in it, as the bad guy and stuff. But at the same time, it's like when you watch it, it's kind of like it feels dated. I don't know whether that is a lot of the compositing, the optical compositing that they were doing back then. You see a lot of matte lines in a lot of the scenes, which you didn't really see in the first film. But anyway, I digress. So back to Prey. I thought this was done really well. Amber Midhunter was fantastic in this. I really enjoyed her character. Her brother, Dakota Beavers, was a big standout in this thing as well because of the whole warrior aspect. I liked that they almost went back to that Ripley in Aliens or Sarah Connor in the original Terminator film where, you had this hero that was forced to emerge to fight the Predator. But at the same time, she still kind of had help. Because if you think about it, in the end, I'll throw out some spoilers here, but in the climactic battle at the end, her brother became a sacrificial lamb. He knew he wasn't going to make it out of this thing. And so he, was running around on the horse, throwing the spear, cutting off, right through the Predator and cutting an arm off, like all the stuff that he was helping. He was kind of wearing down this Predator to make it a little bit more realistic, if you will, for Amber's character to kill the Predator. I like the fact that she cultivated her skills. She was more like a tracker and knew of medicines and things through the plants, which was cool. I remember being next to my wife and I said, oh, it cools down the body, this stuff that they're putting in it. That's a really cool take. I said, honey, pay attention. This is going to pop up later in the movie because the Predator sees everything in infrared, almost like when Arnold had the mud on him to camouflage himself in the first film. And sure enough, it played out. It was one of those things where, she had the hatchet. And, she was throwing it at the rabbits but then it clicked. Oh, maybe I should, if I tied something on this, I could pull it back to me so I wouldn't lose a grasp on it. And when she started practicing with it, it was, it took her a couple times, but she started getting it. And then that played into when she got into the quicksand and the mud pit and things like that. And I felt like the story really, the first two acts were kind of a slow burn, but at the same time, you were learning all these things. And then you got to see the Predator, hunt different things like the wolf. And he was slowly like challenging himself and upping the ante. The grizzly bear scene, which I thought was great, that Naru jumped into the water and went into the beaver's den. I thought that was really awesome. And I especially like the scene, the part where the grizzly's feet kept plunging through the water as she was trying to swim as it was getting closer and closer. I will say that that was the weakest CGI in the entire film. I felt almost all the shots were beautiful of the landscapes, and I'm sure those were composited and things like that. All the locations looked great. The wolf chasing the rabbit looked good. The rattlesnake was a little, CGI. but how do you get the rattlesnake to do what it was going to do? The whole movie's theme was prey, the bigger animals eating the prey. And you could see that throughout the whole film, the themes. Again, other than a couple of spots where the CGI was a little like, and I think those were probably budget constraints, because I've seen better CGI bears in higher end films that had larger budgets. But when you don't have the budget, you kind of do what you kind of do. So the only time I really felt pulled out of the movie in general was the grizzly bear, because I was like, they could have done that so much better. It's okay. Not a problem. It was not a deal breaker on the film. It was nice to see Jesse Ventura post on Twitter that he thought the movie was great and welcomed her into the Predator family, Amber Midthunder. And, again, it's kind of like it was a refreshing, they've gone so far with these movies into the space stuff, into the, Alien versus Predator films, where they've really just pushed the envelope. And, it's funny because the last Predator movie that came out, The Predator, had an amazing cast. You had Olivia Munn, you had Keegan-Michael Key, you had Thomas Jane, you had Sterling K. Brown, and Jake Busey had a scene that was cut where he was supposed to come back as like the son of Gary Busey's character in part 2, still on the hunt for the elusive predator, that killed his dad. You had Trevante Rhodes, Brian A. Prince played the predator in that one. But you had really, really strong actors. Boyd Holbrook was pretty good, but for whatever reason, the movie just didn't work. And you can tell in the reshoots at the end when they brought Boyd back, and then the gift they gave them was a Predator Iron Man suit to fight future Predators, because I'm sure they were trying to make this a continuation. Maybe they were going to do a trilogy of humans versus Predators, and that they got a Predator suit that looks like an Iron Man suit. And it's like Shane Black directed at Iron Man 3. Did he just get that idea? And then they slapped it in later because the movie was just testing bad. So yeah, it was just like, I digress. Back to Prey. I thought it was a good move for them to release this on Hulu because it was a lower budget film. I don't think it needed to be in theaters. I enjoyed the one commercial at the beginning because I have the commercial ad supported. So what was really cool was they played it. It wasn't like when you're watching, This Is Us or some other show on Hulu where they do commercial breaks. So I was able to have the lower tiered, but they just ran a Hyundai commercial in the beginning of it just before the whole movie played. I thought that was a win. That was definitely a win. I enjoyed everything about the film. The third act was really strong. The kills were great. Every time someone died, it was really good. The bad guys, the French hunters, all that stuff was great with them. And the look of the Predator. I think a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people go, not sure about the look of the Predator. They did use like a hybrid CGI and costume. So, of course, when the helmet comes off, a lot of CGIs with the mandibles, and his look is a little bit different. But what I would say is this is 300 years prior to the events of the original Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And if all of these other movies are canon, like Predators, the one that Robert Rodriguez did, where they took all the people off the different planets and dropped them on another planet. And there's these different tribes of predators. They all look different. They all have a little tweak to them. They all don't look like the one that fought Arnold Schwarzenegger. And being 300 years in the prior, even the helmet of the Predator was like a bone helmet from something else he killed, it seemed. Still kind of fit his head, but he was slender, a little more sleek, seemed to be faster than the other Predators, and that's fine. Without evolving these movies and kind of catching up with special effects, again, weak grizzly bear, special effects were all spent on the Predator itself in this movie, Prey, and I thought that was great. The directing I thought was great. The action sequences were great. They didn't go all you know, John Wick. There were some scenes where, you know, they were jumping from tree to tree and stuff. And, you know, you're kind of like, but the thing is, this is supposed to be 1719, the year 1719. So, you know, totally understandable that everything they're doing. And I liked how they learned. They learned that when the red dots came on, you know, they didn't know what laser sighting was, but when they saw the red dots, they knew something was up, and they could dodge it or run from it. And it was just really good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it in the Comanche dub. This is a great addition to the Predator franchise. I think it's better than the last couple of Predator films. And the idea of going back to the basics, primitive against this technological menace, and having to, you know, fight this guy and this creature and use the primitive ideas and resources you have around you. It's great. They really captured it in this film. Loved hearing it had a good soundtrack. I loved hearing the Predator noise all the time, every time he was around. The cloaking was cool. I don't see much wrong with this film. I saw people comparing it to, a lot of people go out there saying this is the best Predator film since the original, much like Top Gun Maverick is an amazing sequel. They were like, you know, we're finally getting sequels that are worthy of the original. And I kind of feel that with this film. And some of the other friends and I were debating on Facebook that, you know, where do you go now? Now you've gone 300 years into the past to Native Americans, you know, having to fight a predator. Maybe World War II would be a good way to go, because we've already done modern times with the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s and the Alien vs. Predators, and then going into the future on a ship to another planet and all this kind of stuff, or finding, you know, one encased in ice, a ship encased in ice. You know, where do you go with this? You know, you can't go back to prehistoric times with Neanderthals fighting predators. You know, so I don't know. This will be a great standalone. I don't see this turning into multiple films with Amber Mid-Thunder. I just don't see, I think this is a standalone one and done kind of thing. And, but it's interesting to see where it might go in the future. What other time periods can they, you know, dissect and get into, where it actually makes it plausible that a predator can be overthrown. The other thing is, like, they keep dropping predators on Earth, and they don't seem to come back. So, you know, one of the questions is, are they really, like, do we need a Predator film where he completely annihilates everyone, gets on his ship and flies away? That might be the next big way to go, because no matter how hard they fight throughout the whole movie, everyone dies. There is no survivor, and the alien and the Predator actually wins. That, I would be down for that. That would be like a really hardcore horror film. I'd be down with that. What did you guys think of Prey? I know I was all over the map, but hey, that's just me. As ideas flow, they just flow. I'm not scripted. So yeah, what did you guys think of Prey? Let's talk about it in the comments section, and we'll see you on the next one.